welcome to We Say Things, episode 13. My name is Sunsfan, joined by syndereN. This, of course, is sponsored by Noble Chairs, but I have to say, it is the final episode that we get to grace Noble Chairs' presence in our podcast. Thank you for sponsoring this podcast. And guys, if you have any sponsors out there, we're actually going to start reaching out to sponsors. I haven't been doing that, syndereN. I don't know if you're aware of that. Noble Chairs kind of just came to us. Me. Okay, he does know that. If you guys have any inside connections for some cool companies like Totino's Pizza Rolls, for example, stuff that I like to stuff in my mouth, it is much appreciated. Just send some emails to us. Banana Hammock is also a great sponsorship. Thank you. This, of course, is available on Apple, Spotify, Google, everything, every podcast thing that you want to use. And we appreciate everybody listening in on every Tuesday at 2 a.m. PST, 11 a.m. CEST. Every Tuesday, syndereN. We have done it every Tuesday. Can you believe 13 episodes in a row? We haven't failed. Are you excited?
Unbelievable. Actually, unbelievable.
I'm actually shocked. I'm not even memeing right now. I'm legitimately
That's when you
shocked.
know it's not a Dota Cinema exclusive.
But it is a Dota Cinema exclusive. That doesn't make any sense.
Because it's also not on Dota Cinema.
The audio portion.
Also on Dota Cinema.
I see. That's a good point. Because
if it were only on Dota Cinema, it wouldn't be consistent.
You can find the audio for people that don't know how to use podcast stuff at sunsfan.gg/podcast. Isn't that amazing, syndereN? Because you can also find our Underlords podcast there as well. It's great. Terrific.
Oh, yeah. I've been listening to that a lot lately.
I'm sure you have. We'll get
How
to
many
what you've been
episodes
up
have you
to.
made?
3. And they've all been on different days, different times. But we will start to do them on Fridays now. Weekly. So
I didn't actually know you. Yeah, okay. Maybe I should check that out.
It's with Swim and Zeno, actually. And we usually have a guest.
I don't need to check that out.
Okay. Read some reviews, syndereN. Yep. Be nice.
Oh, am I reading them? I thought you were going to read them.
Well, there's 3. We can split them up. That's what we usually do.
All right, I'll do the first one. You do the last 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read the very long one.
Okay.
Love These Guys 5 Stars by Slack's dad. Okay. This is the best Dota podcast out there. These 2 guys are witty, funny enough, for insightful opinions on a variety of topics within the Dota scene and random other areas. I wish there were more episodes. Keep up the great... Well, I mean, we make one a week. Keep up the great work. I have some constructive criticism for syndereN. Please don't take this the wrong way. I think you are great, seriously. Maybe this is a cultural I'm from NA thing. I find that Sin is so careful before he states his opinion, it can be tiring to listen to. What I mean by this is that he generally has a long preamble describing how he may or may not have a valid opinion on a topic for some reason or another. That's called acknowledging that you're not educated on a subject, so you don't say something really stupid. Wait, where is it? I understand doing this for certain topics, but it seems like Sin does this with pretty much everything. I don't think there's anything wrong with stating your opinions flat out. It's not necessarily to qualify every statement you make. Thanks for reading. Also, I really like the segment where you discuss the differences in American and Danish culture. Interested in hearing more on this. All right. Thank you very much, Slack's dad.
This is a cool review because now we've seen both ends of the spectrum, because that's one complaint of you being too conservative, if you will. Mm-hmm. And we've had another complaint early on where I just, vomit something out of my mouth, basically. But I feel like that's why we work together so well, because you get a little mix of both, right?
I agree with what
too nice, by the way.
I wouldn't agree with that being the conclusion of that, but I don't know. I feel like, especially in this day and age, I think people just make big statements without, or they just have like really strong opinions without reason. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know exactly what you mean, because I do that all the time on this podcast.
Okay, I don't think this is specifically a Danish thing, but I would definitely agree in the US it's more...
yes.
You use more hyperbole, I think, than we do in Denmark. So,
we like blanketing statements.
Yeah. And yeah, from my perspective, I don't know, it's something... Because... That's just something that comes really naturally to me. I don't want to say something that's completely wrong. So if I'm not educated on a subject or something, I will say this is what I think about it, but I don't know enough about it. Because I don't want to mislead people, I don't want to tell them something with a lot of confidence and then I'm just wrong. Because spreading misinformation, we have enough of that already, and I don't want to contribute.
Man, what a stand-up citizen you are. All right, next review.
That's pretty much it. Yes.
From B. Lards. Mildly decent for 5 stars. This is the best podcast available that creates human-animal hybrids by incorrectly pronouncing the names of professional athletes. Kawhi Leopard, Matt Lyon, Mike Trout, that's a real one actually, Bradley Seal, Blake Griffin, Damian Lizard, Giannis Antelope, And Drew Fleas, 5-star. Thank you, friend.
Can I just say in this list of animals that griffin is not an actual animal? just quickly get that
Fantasy counts, syndereN, all right?
Okay.
And last one for the week from Jawahalin. Created NA account to review this cool podcast. Thank you, friend. Despite not playing the game for more than 3 years, I am following esports scene actively and watching replays of a lot of the games. Having said that, I'm listening to this podcast every week when I'm commuting to work on my 1-hour flight. Damn. You have to do that many flights. That's crazy. People have been giving me weird looks whenever I burst out with laughter. I find it strange, but I really like listening to you guys. Cheers to Sunsfan for his laughter and all the jokes. And cheers to syndereN for being a real piece of shit. I just made that part up.
That's
for his cool insights. He proved many times.
He misspelled my name.
That's because you're not important. syndereN. For his cool insights, he proved many times that even though he spent most of his life playing Dota, he for sure has read some books and keeps interest in different things. Greetings from Poland. That is amazing. That is an amazing review. Thank you.
Literally the last time I read a full book, it's been years since I read a book.
Really?
No
That's
joke.
Actually, that is surprising.
I don't really read that much. For entertainment, I love watching streams, or if I read something, I read online, but I don't really sit down with a book and read it. It's been a long time since I read a book.
It's fun.
I have read books in my life, though, so that is correct.
Okay, good. Very good.
Good analysis.
Thank you for that great review. So again, not to keep doing this segment, syndereN, but more stuff has happened in the NBA, as usual. I don't want you to read anything yet, but first, the last thing that's happened after the last domino has finally fallen for the most part. Chris Paul, a.k.a. CP3, with the second most untradeable contract in the NBA, and I say that because he's very old, but his contract is ginormous, and he had a big fight with his big bearded friend, James Harden, okay? Who, now that I think about it, doesn't have a nickname. Is that true? Maybe he does, and I can't think of it right now. Either way, he's the Beard.
It's probably called Hard 4 or something.
He's the Beard. So they had a big fight, and they somehow traded Chris Paul to Oklahoma City, which he's going to be very unhappy there, for Russell Westbrook, who probably had the third or fourth most untradeable contract. But his is a little bit better because he's younger, but that roster makes absolutely no sense, syndereN, because everybody wants the ball. It's like having 2 carries on the same team.
You know what roster also made no sense?
What?
Digital Chaos TI6, and then they got second.
Wait, what made no sense with that? That was fine.
Okay, never mind.
What was wrong with that roster? What are you talking? Now that I say you can't have 2 carries on the same, that's exactly what Dota is, basically. You have 2 carries, essentially. So forget that analogy. One thing that some people brought up to me is they love the fact that you mispronounce or make up these player names or whatever. I wrote down 3 names of players that are in the league now, and I want you to try to say them out loud.
Okay.
These are real names.
Fall.
Say it again.
Taco Fall.
Okay, his name is Taco Fall.
Taco Fall.
Taco.
So it's like the cousin of Taco Bell.
Yep.
Okay. Mobamba.
That's right, Mobamba.
And Bulbul.
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 So this is the son.
So like
he's
Super Bowl.
He's a rookie. His father was named Manute Bol. And he was actually a really cool guy, very tall. I can't remember what country he's from. It's maybe, I want to say Kenya, but I can't remember exactly which one. Oh, so maybe it's Senegal. I can't remember. One of those countries in Africa where a lot of great players have actually come from. And he was very tall, like 7'6", 7'7", which you're going to have to do the conversions on that, by the way.
Wait, what?
Yes, like ridiculously tall and extremely skinny, like super skinny. You need to look up the measurements.
That is really fucking tall. I'm tall, okay? That's insane.
So say the measurements so the people from EU know, or any country that's not the US.
7'7".
Yeah, I think he's 7'6".
It's like 230 centimeters.
So very tall
that's insane.
And very skinny.
So very tall. You have no idea.
Very tall and very skinny. And he unfortunately did die not too long ago because you just have health problems with that size. But his son, Bulbul, he looks very similar to him. Super lanky, extremely tall. And I felt so bad for him because he was supposed to be drafted in the first round and they invite people. It's called the green room, syndereN. They invite these players that they assume are going to be drafted in the first round. but he fell deep into the second, and it was like super sad to just see him sitting there all alone. Hopefully he has a good career, but
He was probably easy to see too.
yes, he stood out like a sore thumb, no doubt.
You see him sitting there, and he's still taller than the people standing next to him.
That's actually correct. So last thing before we get started with games, I actually have an actual rant here. I thought of this the other day because it's a huge pet peeve of mine, syndereN.
Please tell me you're in the right team here. I see the writing on the wall here. I see the text. Please tell me I'm on the right team.
I am on the correct team because it's the correct way to say it. Okay, so this is what we're talking about, guys. There's the word a and the word an, A-N, right? When do you use the word an, syndereN?
You use the word "an" when the following word begins with a vowel sound.
Right. So an orange, not a orange, for example.
Correct.
So there's one thing where this apparently doesn't apply for some reason, and it really pisses me off. So, and I can understand if you're from the United Kingdom, that this is perfectly fine because you guys pronounce this a different way, but Americans have no excuse. The word historic, it starts with an H. You say the H, but people still say an historic for some fucking reason, and it kills me to hear this. It makes me so irrationally angry for people to say an historic. It's horrible. And these are like presidents of the United States. And I'm not talking about the current president because he's literally just white trash. He doesn't even matter. That's a whole nother ballpark. Like actual presidents of the United States that are respectable say an historic. Why? Tell me why, syndereN, please.
That's a really good question. Why wouldn't they say ahistoric when that's what it's called? I don't know.
Yes.
I would say ahistoric.
Thank you.
There you go.
I'm glad we can agree on something.
At least it's even worse if they say an historic. Okay, if they say an historic, that's one thing. Because at least it's consistent with the rules.
No,
You're
they
just
do
saying
say that,
the word wrong.
They
say an historic.
No, they say
an historic.
They say I. They don't say the H.
Yeah,
but they're American.
Because they're at least following the rules then. But for some reason, the word is just losing a letter. It's better. We both agree that it's better than if they would say an historic, right?
As an American, no. I think they're both equally god-awful, and I hate
equally
them.
bad. Okay, I mean, they're both bad. We can agree on that. But.
Okay, moving on to Dota, my friend. Regional qualifiers have occurred. I can talk about the teams that made it through. We got Mineski from SEA, Navi from CIS, which obviously we talked last week about Gambit. That's the huge upset, if you will.
Yep.
Infamous from South America. We got Royal Never Give Up from China, Chaos from EU, and Forward Gaming from NA. But first, let's talk about you and your experiences, syndereN. I'm sorry you didn't make it, my friend.
Yeah.
Tell me everything.
So basically, I think the short way I can explain this or talk about it from my perspective is, so what ended up happening, day one, we went 1-3, which puts you in a really tough position. We had to win every game on day two, and then we did. So we went 4-3 and got into a 3-way tiebreaker for 2 slots. Mm-hmm. And then we lost to both teams in the tiebreaker. So we didn't get the 4th slot. Basically, the team that I had, when we played our best and we had our good heroes, I think we were on a level where we could beat everyone in this tournament, maybe even more than half the time. But I think in terms of like hero depth and practice time and strategies that we had, we were just a bit limited. And we also weren't as consistent as some of the better teams overall. So, if you do the math on that, how many times in a row you need to roll a 5 or 6 with the dice, it was likely that at some point it would catch up to us. But, it was still an okay showing, I think, for how short the team was together and, the limitations our players had. Communication was also a bit of an issue. We had one Kazakhstan player and one Ukrainian player. So they're not as good at English as the rest of the players are. Not that it's not meant to be an excuse. It's just, it's a factor. Everything adds up. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was my experience with it. I don't regret going for it. I think we had a pretty good shot at it with what I said. But in the end, it's not very surprising that we did not make it through. What was interesting to see, though, about Chaos was that they almost got knocked out, similar to us. They were in the 3-way tiebreaker as well with 4-3, and they went into day 2 with a 2-3 score, so they had to win both games. And then they did win both games and just picked up steam. They lost their first game in the upper bracket 2-1, and then they just didn't lose a game after that. And they went 2-0, 2-0, 3-0, I think. So, yeah, that was EU.
Were you surprised by any other region? I mean, I think Royal Never Give Up was I picked them. I think that was the pretty clear for me at least. Like the other organizations,
Gambit still.
Well, true.
Apart from that, nothing really. If it weren't to be Gambit from CIS, I would have chosen Navi or Windstrike probably, and then beyond that, yeah, it's kind of expected for the most part, at least from all the other regions.
Yeah, and Forward comes out in NA like we said. I think I got destroyed on my predictions, by the way. I picked Gambit, so I got that one wrong. I picked you guys. Thanks for fucking that up in EU.
I didn't tell you.
And I didn't pay you for that. And Beast Coast I picked for NA. I mean, I have a soft heart for my friends like you and Brax, you know. I really want these things. But I did get the rest right. So when the heart's not involved, you get things correct, other than Gambit. All right. So the 18 teams are complete for TI9. So that's going to be pretty hardcore. Should be an interesting tournament, to say the least. Collector's Cash number 2 came out suddenly. Very surprising, actually, because we talked about this, right? How there's usually been 2. And like, how could they come out with a second after what they did for the first one, right? But they did, and it's really good. Do you like these sets?
Well, first of all, a lot of these sets are the ones that did not make it into Cash number 1, right? It's more from the list, if you will. I think so. I feel like I've seen this Clockwork set somewhere before.
All right, hold on. No? Definitely not. Some of them might be. Like this first set was a Drow Ranger that Natio, my boy, made years ago for Dota Pit. Like literal 3-4 years ago.
Okay, so they might not have anything to do with the cache.
Yeah, some of them.
Wait, there's the Necro Bird one that people were like, "How did this not make it into the cache?"
Right. Yeah, that one's from the last one.
So
yeah.
So there's definitely something here that is from the last cache. Okay. Overall,
I think this was better than Cache 1. To be perfectly honest,
I need to find Cache 1 so I can just compare them quickly.
Sure. Okay, I'll talk about the ones that I really like then. First of all, the Warlock Golem is easily the best in the game now, I feel like. This gorilla, it's like Axe on crack, like we talked about, right? It's Axe's little brother now. I love that one, even though I don't play the hero. Obviously, the tribute to Total Biscuit with the Pudge set, that's amazing. That's really cool, especially like the bow tie specifically. I mean, all these sets are really high quality. Like the Necro one you talked about is amazing. Ember Spirit is by far the best Ember Spirit set now. He has nunchucks. Like, that is god tier. That's like the coolest weapon in the game, honestly.
They haven't made a custom sound for it yet, though, as far as I'm aware.
They'll probably do that, I think.
I hope so.
People really want it. And then the Juggernaut, which is the ultra rare. I didn't get either of these rares, but the Juggernaut looks pretty filthy as well. Really
like
good
the
chest.
Hyperstone, the Hyperstone in the chest that radiates. It looks cool. It's a cool idea. I'm comparing it to Collector's Cache 1. I still think out of all the cache sets, my overall favorite is probably still the Rubik from the first cache. I really like that set. Didn't get it, though. But that one's cool. In this one, the Nunchuck is cool. I think out of all of the non-rares in this chest, my favorite is probably the Wraith King, actually.
Really?
Or maybe the Abaddon. The Abaddon one is really nice, too.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So Slacks was getting very upset about the Abaddon one because it turns him into a night elf. I personally love it. I don't give a shit about the lore though.
I think it looks really cool.
I'm saying you really like the Wraith King, really? Wow, that was probably my least favorite in this set.
I think the Wraith King is pretty cool. Also, I like the Warlock Golem a lot, and the Clockwork was also cool.
The cogs are really cool in that set.
The thing that's a bit of a shame is when you look at... I also actually, I want to say one more set. I think the Shadow Fiend set is really cool, but unfortunately it's hard to use. The coolest asset of it doesn't really work with the... because the hero already has an Arcana and an Immortal, right?
Yeah.
And you can't mix and match this in the way that you really want. So that's a shame, because the Shadow Fiend, I think, he has 3 item slots, I think. And the 2 really cool ones on this set, I think so. Let me check him now. Yeah, the 2 really cool ones on this set are the arms and the head, and they have an Immortal and an Arcana. So you're left with only getting the shoulders, which are also really cool. Oh, actually, never mind. You get the shoulders. I was going to say the shoulders and the head are cool.
This has been requested before, or suggested, I guess is a better way to put it, and I totally agree with this. I feel like the effects from Immortals you should be able to apply them to any item you want. Because I want to be able to, like, there's so many times that I'm like, this item looks so cool, but I can't use it because I have an Immortal on that slot. So just switching that over, I don't even care about the passive effects from Immortals. It's more the active skill changes.
And if they don't want to do it
cool.
with the Immortals because it's too much work, they could at least do it with the Arcanas, right?
Sure, but there's not that
Let
many
the Arcana
Arcanas.
keep all of their effects, and then kind of just every hero that gets an Arcana slot, if you know what I mean. So then you can still equip an item with the Arcana, or something like that. That would be one way of doing it.
Yeah, that could be.
Because there's a lot of Immortals by now in the game.
Right.
I don't know how much work that would be to like separate these things, animations and stuff. Not sure. Maybe it's super easy.
So moving on, the spring cleaning, which everybody wanted, is now the summer scrub. Well done, Valve. Basically, they just want bug reports and quality. The quality of life stuff is always the coolest because those are like some of my favorite Reddit threads. Are some of these quality of life changes that people create, and like they need to put this in the game, and a lot of times they do. Yeah. So looking forward to that. This
There's
Friday
been
there's
a lot
going to
of
be
really good suggestions, by the way.
Yes, I agree. Maybe we should have highlighted some of them, but we didn't. So this Friday there will be an update with the Kid Invoker hero persona. So we talked about how many features aren't out yet, right? Tiny is still one of them. And this Invoker is another big one. We're at 29 million. What did you predict again?
I don't remember. 31 or 32, I think.
So we are at 29 million with, is it a month? It's a full month to go, I'm pretty sure.
Full month, yeah.
Are you sticking with your number? It's definitely higher than that, right?
I think it will be higher. I mean, I'm not going to change it, right?
That's
said
fine.
What I thought.
I said 35. We'll see.
I think you said 35. I think it's likely going to be in between, I think, our two predictions, but it's probably going to be closer to yours. That's what I'm guessing.
Okay, we'll see, syndereN. We'll have a great podcast.
It could even be
with
more.
that.
Like, who knows?
If it's more, I win.
Like
by
we've
the way,
talked,
that's how it works.
Like we've talked about, it's kind of up to Valve, right? They are in, they're in control of it because they can create something that there's a lot of demand for if they want to bump it past a certain amount for whatever reason.
Yeah, but they're required to put out a lot of these items because they advertise them already.
Of course, the stuff that's advertised has to go in. But if they wanted to go for 40 million for whatever reason, they could put in some crazy offers, like more of those. They could just print money with it.
If you want a level 500 courier with Gabe's face on it, that pretty much gets you to 40 million alone. So, or a Gabe hero, literally sell a hero. That's how you get 50 million, right?
That is how you get a lot of community outrage selling a hero.
That's right, but you get to 50 million, and that's all that matters, right? Because TI is the only thing that matters this year.
I think Valve would get more shit for that than anything ever before. I think that is the number one thing that the community prides itself on the most, is that you can play the entire game for free.
Right.
If they implemented something that you couldn't play for free, holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
I kind of want to watch it. I kind of want them to do it just to see. And then they can backtrack after.
It's an experiment of sorts. I mean, I can tell you this from experience, my friend, that Han did this already. They went free to play, and then they switched it up at the last moment. So it's been done, and it was a disaster. So
that's real bad.
Also 7.22e came out. I don't know if you even want to talk about anything that maybe stands out to you.
Yeah, there's
Stout Shield doesn't stack anymore. That's pretty.
I want to start even higher up. Actually, I want to start with the first change of the patch.
Sure.
Low ground miss and miss debuff chance is now pseudo random. Can I just say that I'm a huge fan of pseudo random as a concept in games? I love this a lot more than true random, because if there's one thing that people...
Explain what pseudo random is for people that maybe aren't familiar with it.
So basically, true random is what most people just call random. It's like you roll the dice and you have 1/6 of getting a 6, right? 1 in 6 chance. With pseudo random, every time you roll the dice, every time you roll the die and you don't get a 6, the chance on your following roll that it's a 6 is higher. But if you roll the die 1,000 times, you will still get 6s 1/6 of the time. So basically, your first roll has a lower chance than 1/6 of being a 6. And then every time you roll it and it's not a 6, the chance increases. And then when you do get a 6, the counter resets.
It's literally escalating odds, aka chess, right?
It's a way of trying to balance out the randomness so that you don't get 5 crits in a row on PA and win the game, because that's extremely unlikely with pseudo random. But at the same time, it's also protection that you don't hit 25 times in a row with PA and get 0 crits. So it kind of like it normalizes randomness.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
Really
normalize
great.
it. Is there anything in the game that's not pseudo random right now that you think they could
still
change?
Some things.
Like anything major, maybe.
I think Void's backtrack talent is still true random. I want to say.
I feel like most
Which
of
is,
the aggressive ones they've changed at this point, right?
Yeah,
That one's more
I
of a
think
passive,
they made
defensive.
at this point. I think every crit in the game is pseudo-random. I want to say at least. I think every bash is pseudo-random.
Mm.
Most evasion, I think, is pseudo-random. There's still elements of true random in the game, like runes are true random, with the only exception that the same rune can't spawn twice. I've pitched pseudo-random runes, but that has not been implemented.
Wait, how would
Because
that
I think
work?
that would actually be a cool. So if the rune is a haste, then the next rune can't be haste, but it
Oh,
can be all the others.
yeah.
Then let's say the next rune is a DD. Now the third rune has a lower chance of being a haste
All right.
than any of the other runes, right? So you could make like an array where it just checks what the previous runes were.
Do you think
And
that
lowers the
matters
chances
that
accordingly.
much?
I suggested it because there was specifically a time in Dota where it actually meant so much for mid lane that it was like haste DD could just decide a game, because some runes are just inherently better than others in the early game, right? Every rune is good though in different situations. It's just some runes are on average worse, right? Illusion rune is on average worse than DD in Dota.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be one way of doing that.
What's the worst rune? Do you think illusion
yeah.
is the worst rune? If you had to choose? I know that everything's
Overall,
situational.
yes.
Yeah. I would
Overall,
agree.
yes. Yeah, exactly. Because it's situational, right? Because sometimes Illusion Rune wins the game. You make like a bait and the enemy uses 2 big ultis on an Illu or whatever.
Yep,
That
exactly.
thing happened. But yeah. Yeah, okay. So in terms of pseudo-random, we had one more thing getting pseudo-random, which was Lycan's crit. That was true random until now in Shapeshift.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's also pseudo-random. Like you said, Stout Shield no longer stacks. I think that's fine. It's kind of a gimmick that started being used a lot. People go 2 Stout Shields and just cut creep waves, which is pretty dumb. So I'm fine
Mm-hmm.
with that.
And it finally
then,
ends the question: do stout shields stack? It's still a question that's
Yeah.
asked every time somebody picks it up.
Now you can just flat out say no, and you can
That's
write in the
right.
item text. Just a quick mention of some big hero changes. Centaur got nerfed pretty hard. What players have
every
been doing
patch.
recently? They've been going 1-4-4 build, so you get the high damage output from both damage spells. But now that Hoofstomp has a 22-second cooldown instead of 13 on level 1, you kind of have to level it so you get more stuns in the fight, and that means that the sacrifice you're making is going to be double edge. So people are probably going to go from 1-4-4 to 4-1-4 build. That's a really big nerf. Ion Shell got nerfed again for whatever fucking reason. Darkseid's fucking dying, man. Ember can no longer slide a fist in roots, which is irrelevant in some games and really relevant in other games. It means you can buy Rod of Atos against this hero to counter it pretty effectively. Heroes that have strong roots like Crystal Maiden can suddenly be really good against Ember because you can frostbite him and then ulti, and
I
he
thought that
can't dodge half your ulti with Sleight of Fist
I always
if there's
thought
a
it was
big
a
team fight
bug
with target.
that he could use sleight of fist.
Oh, that's always been
That's so
intended.
strange.
But yeah, it's a good way of nerfing the hero. And then I guess the final big nerf that I want to mention is IO got butchered in lane, which I don't mind because I'm not an IO player. But if I were an IO player, I would probably feel like, wow, this fucking sucks. This is insane.
Mm.
Tether heals 60% on level 1 instead of 90, which is crazy. This hero is so much worse now. It's not. It's actually
But
insane how much
as
worse
you
it is.
level, it ends up being the same, at least.
In the end, it's the same, but the way IOs were generally leveling was 1-4-4 or maybe 2-4-4. And now you kind of have to put in extra value points in Tether. So it's similar logic to Centaur, where, well, what's going to suffer? It's probably going to be your overcharge. So then that's going to be way worse in the mid game. Finally, 1 or 2 noteworthy buffs, I suppose. Actually, Morph got reworked a little bit. Let's mention that too. Scepter no longer reduces cooldowns. So this should probably affect your Ags list.
I'm not updating it
The-
again.
The the morph Ags is a lot worse now. What it does now is that you can target allies, which was what the level 20 talent gave you. And then you still get the cast range on it, but you don't get the cooldown reduction, which is now a level 20 talent, but only gives 15% instead of 35.
Right.
So overall, Morph has some interesting choices now on level 15 or level 20 by taking a CDR talent and then not going Ags, because now you can have cooldown reduction on your other spells instead of only the stolen ones.
Mm-hmm.
With the eggs. So you have a better waveform, and you have a better adaptive strike and a better morph cooldown. But yeah, the eggs is worse.
They also nerfed Exorcism with Ags, right? From 2 times
yeah.
damage to 1.75.
That's true. I don't think it shifts it too much, but it makes it worse, of course.
It's funny
and
they
then
go with
really
decimal because they've
noteworthy
been trying to go
buffs-
away from decimals in the recent past.
Yeah, that's true. Quick noteworthy buffs. There are obviously a lot of other changes. Actually, okay, one more nerf now that I see it. Spirit Breaker Charge. Went from 11-second cooldown to 17 -2 per level. So again, same logic as Centaur and IO. Now you probably have to level up your charge a bit when before the preferred build was 144 or 244. People might start maxing charge over Bulldoze, which is a really strong spell. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, the buffs I quickly wanted to mention were, let me see. Venge got 2 int again. So in the last 2 patches, Venge has got 2 damage and 4 intelligence. Which,
Wow.
these base stat changes are actually really important because
They
it
add
affects
up.
every game, every build, everything. So I think Venge is slowly becoming good. And in my opinion, the hero's only true weakness is the laning stage. I think the hero's just strong. It has minus armor, it has plus damage for the team, and it has swap, which is one of the best support ultis in the game because it's flexible. It's offensive and defensive at the same time. There's not that many spells like that, so this hero is getting somewhere, and it might be a really big pick at TI. Venge is like a TI stable, so I don't mind. It's always been like a great support hero.
What do you think of
at
this
TI.
this Gus talent? 30% Gus
Uh,
mischance at 15.
It's a bit weird. I don't really like it that much. That's the drow change of the patch. It got another talent buff on level 15 as well. I don't know. I don't really like it so much, but I think the other talent was also kind of dumb. It was kind of grief almost. Sometimes the Gus talent was actually working against you. So
Yeah.
I didn't like that talent that much. One more hero I want to mention, the buff for Mirana. Got 3 base intelligence, and arrow deals 30 more damage level 1. And then 20 more damage level 2, 10 more damage level 1, or level 3, same damage level 4. And then it has lower cooldown on higher levels as well. So Mirana got a pretty serious buff on the arrow. And Visage is the final one. Grave Chill 6 seconds on all levels, and then the values have been tweaked. So it's worse in terms of how much attack speed and move speed enemies lose in lane, but since it lasts longer, it's more annoying, probably. And then the max values are better on everything. So I think this is actually a pretty big buff to Visage that we saw in this patch. Okay.
Cool.
That was kind of a quick rundown of the bigger things.
Very cool. So
yeah.
this is probably the last patch until TI, I would think, right? Minus
Minus
very minor bug fixes.
I think we'll get a 722F. That's
really
my guess.
okay.
TI is
Cool.
1 month away. Yeah, maybe we'll get an F in like 1 week with like some minor tweaks and bug fix or whatever, if there is something like that. But that's it. Yeah, we won't get
All right.
723. I agree with that.
So moving on to Moonduck related stuff, Midas Mode 2. Did you see this trailer, by the way? The Roshan
The one with
VR?
the Roshan? Yeah, I saw that one. It looks funny.
So for those that haven't seen it, there's going to be VR for VIP members at the Midas Mode tournament, which is going to be in Colorado. It's already sold out, by the way, so don't try to buy it.
Oh, nice.
It's sold out instantly. But essentially, you'll be able to put on a VR headset and use Roshan. You'll be Roshan, and you can beat the shit out of pro players. So that's the idea. Hopefully it works correctly, but it, in theory, sounds amazing. I can't wait for that. Also, we're still organizing and we'll be advertising a little bit more in the future for the TI9 Jungle Jam that we talked about last week. So for those that are in the area or those that want to hang out, make sure to buy a ticket for the TI9 Jungle Jam. We get to hang out with some cool people like myself, syndereN.
That's
It just bring. I told somebody to bring me Krispy Kreme. I'll give them a hug for that. That's hug worthy right there. By the way, have you had Krispy Kreme out of curiosity?
I have, yeah.
Ooh,
I think.
and
Do you remember this? We did this segment at one of the hubs for TI, which was
Yes.
eat different fast food and rate it.
yeah,
At Krispy Kreme, I give it 5 out of 5. I think.
that's right.
I think it got the
that.
highest score.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is
it's just
delicious. It's just pure sugar. I love it. All right, last thing Dota related. Chessie, did you read this twitlonger from him? Essentially, kind of gave a rundown. I would say it's a lot like what we talked about in the past, how the money and the lifestyle for tier 2, tier 3 players is pretty much, it's at getting to the point of being unlivable. And he's talking about, now that he's getting older, it's just getting harder and harder to actually just make a living out of this, which is a real shame considering how much money is technically in the scene that's not really being shared around at all. Do you have any comments about this?
He's kind of echoing a lot of the stuff we talked about, right? And then the difference here is he's adding his own personal experience. Like he's giving some numbers on how much prize money they've made. He's giving some, just it's more like it's a bit more personal than the way we've talked about it. We've talked about it just from like an objective standpoint of how we think you should distribute and try to help the tier 2 scene. And his is just, it's great to have more cases, right? That show that there's a high chance that we're right about what we're talking about, basically, when there's more people chiming in and giving their take on it, and it's basically the exact same thing that we've been saying already. So I think it's great that he made the statement. obviously what players probably think about when they make these statements, and that might make a lot of players hesitate to say something like this, is the backlash where people are just like, lol, just play better, noob. You're just not fucking good enough to play tier 1 Dota. I
Yeah.
mean, while that may be true, is it fair that the tier 1 sits on like more than literally 99% of the financial year in Dota? Or should tier 2 also, get a piece of the pie?
Right. And then there's
I think that
players
might
like
repel some people.
mhm.
And that's one thing. One thing is the community reaction where you're like, oh, that it's so hard being a tier 2 player. And maybe some people are also a bit concerned about speaking up about this because they wonder what it makes them look like for potential tier 1 teams that in some future would want to play with them. If it makes them look weak, if it makes them look like they just don't have what it takes, or, whatever it could be. Like, I can understand people maybe hesitating a bit about this, but I think it's really good that he made a statement. I don't think any less of him as a player for it. And I think it's very important to talk about it so that we can develop the
So
scene. 'Cause
remember our
it's really not.
conversation the other week about the TI prize pool distribution that you ended up getting on Reddit, actually, your comment about how we feel like
Yeah.
it should be helping the tier 2 scene. I was actually a little surprised and very disappointed with a lot of the people that were commenting that, and this is the thing that really gets to me, is there's some people, I'm not going to say who, that are figures, let's call them, who somehow are spouting out things that are just 100% not true. It's like they don't understand the game at all and how things affect. It's like a domino effect, and to think that TI should have a $40 million prize pool or whatever the fuck it's going to be and think that that's good. Like, you're just wrong. I don't know what to say.
It is good if everything else is upscaled too,
Well, of
right?
course.
If the argument is we want TI to be as big as possible, fine, but can the rest keep up? If Valve were like, you know what, we're going to make TI as big as possible, we're also going to start selling a season pass that has all sorts of cool shit so that majors and minors can be worth multiple million too. So that in comparison, TI isn't everything. Sure. Is that feasible? Probably not. Like, that's the issue, right?
Well,
the reason TI is so huge is that when you look across the fiscal year in Dota from the community standpoint, all of the really cool shit is in the battle pass, right? And if you start putting cool shit previously or earlier on in the year in multiple other battle passes for majors and minors and whatnot, TI will lose because people don't have infinite money and can't just buy all the shit. So they're going to look at their year. They're going to look, how much money do I have to spend? I want cool stuff in Dota for $50, for $100, for $20, whatever you want to buy it for, right? You're going to look, where do I get most for my money? It's going to be in the TI battle pass. So I just don't think that's a solution. And I think keeping on making this tournament bigger and bigger and bigger relative to everything else just makes it more problematic.
Well, I mean, I'm not okay. This is the thing I want to clarify here. I don't think that, like, we can come up with suggestions, syndereN and I. I'm not saying either of us have this actual solution exactly right.
Yeah.
The idea that TI is just, it's hurting the tier 2, tier 3 scene quite a bit. I mean, the fact that Moon Meander can't even get paid, for God's sake, in the last 2 years, that's a complete joke.
That is a separate issue that doesn't really have anything to do with TI, though.
It's still it's a byproduct in a lot of ways, right? I mean, we're talking about specific instances, a lot of dominoes falling and whatnot. You're right, it's separate, but it's related to a degree, I feel like.
So what do you mean by that? I just want to make sure I understand it. You think the reason that he, in the end, let's call it what it is, if he hasn't been paid his prize money for winning a tournament, he's been scammed, right? If the end outcome is that he gets scammed, what you're saying is because TI is so big that it's really hard for other tournaments to flourish, they end up with a really bad bottom line, and then they start getting tempted by the stuff where, maybe we can get away with it because if we just pay people what they won, our tournament actually ran in a serious minus.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Look at GESC. Look at me, for God's sake. I went in debt for a fucking tournament. A minor. Yeah. Like, I get nothing out of it. Like, there's no incentive. I mean, everything's related to TI at the end of the day. That's what I'm trying to say. TI is the big domino, and whether you think something is directly related or not, it is in some way. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not saying we have the solution. Something needs to be done, though. This is really bad. And I was really disappointed with that Reddit thread. Very, very disappointed.
So the options that we have laid out, basically, like, to make it really simple, there's a couple of options, right? Number one is cap TI's prize pool and make all the additional proceeds go toward funding the rest of the competitive year. The other one is let TI continue as it is, but then invests a lot more and make more content for the rest of the year that people can then buy into, and then probably what's going to happen is that TI will stop breaking records naturally because people are spending more money in the rest of the year. But then the question is that a problem that TI doesn't keep breaking records every year? And a third option, or actually those are the two primary ones, right?
Let's just say
I guess
they
there's
put a
like
cap.
a hybrid solution.
Well, yeah, of course, there's always going to be a hybrid.
You could have a hybrid solution where instead of capping TI, you just have 12.5% go toward the TI prize pool and 12.5% go toward funding the rest of the year, just as an example, right? Like then there's technically no cap, but they two just grow hand in hand when people buy Battle Pass. No, that's another way of doing it.
Like, just for instance, and I know we talked about this before, how maybe they don't want to do this after the fact, after the Battle Pass has been released, which I agree to a certain degree, I guess. Don't think there would actually be an outcry, honestly, but I understand their perspective why they wouldn't do it. But in theory, if this was capped at 30 million, it goes to 35. That's 5 million extra distributed throughout the year. That's a shit ton in the grand scheme of things, considering how little money there is for everything else, right? So,
and this is the TI. This is the TI vacuum, if you want to call it that. Then when it comes to the rest of the year, the question is, let's say we have X million to spend on the rest of the year. How do you spend it? That's a totally different ballpark, though. Should it go to qualifiers for teams that make playoffs and qualifiers but don't qualify? Should there be more money in the minors and majors? Should there be invested into having just flat out more teams at tournaments? That's something you could do if you had X million more for the majors and minors. Maybe majors could have or maybe TI could have more teams. Maybe the major could have more teams. Maybe the minors could have more teams so that, again, more teams get the opportunity to go to these events. I personally think it's a shame that minors always only have 8 teams. I think it's supposed to be for these tier 2 teams to have a chance. But what generally ends up happening is, well, whoever doesn't qualify for the major ends up just destroying these minor teams, right? NIP, they didn't make the major, they will make the minor. Alliance, they didn't make the major, they will make the minor. Gambit, they didn't make the major, they make the minor. So in the end, there's like this one extra team that is kind of tier 1.5 will just still dwarf out the tier 2 teams, and the problem persists. But what if we had money so that we could have 16 teams in the minors? Then I think those extra teams that you add will actually be competing with each other and take turns. I don't think consistently in this season, for example, that Final Tribe would always go to the minor. I think Final Tribe would have gone a couple of times, and other times they would have lost to one of the other teams, right? So there's like this natural competition in building, and they get to go. But it's just the slot allocation and the number of slots just makes it so hard. And Europe is my region, right? So that's where I can relate and understand it the best. And it's also just unfortunate in a sense that the region is as stacked as it is, because what if it wasn't?
Right.
But yeah, you get the idea. And it's probably fairly similar in other regions, right?
So the issue, and this is the last thing I'll say on anything Dota related for now. Valve has a reputation, and we know they love being hands off, right? And I can understand from their company perspective why they wouldn't want to be involved in this kind of stuff, because we talk about how great Valve is versus like somebody like Riot, because we would never want to go down that road. But again, I've said this time and time again, that is both extremes. That's one end of each extreme. It's okay to come a little bit, just like 10% with just a little extra structure similar to other games. And this would be a perfect example of that. And even if you want to outsource that to another company, that's also fine. I don't care who it is, personally. Just something needs to be done. I mean, it's very important for the health of the ecosystem of this game, I feel like, going forward.
But I really think what you said earlier kind of hit the nail on the head of one of the big problems is how difficult it seems to be for tournament organizers to make a profit. That means that if you do want bigger tournaments with more teams, or whatever it is, the tournament organizers can't afford it. So you can't profile your tournament on being a 16-team minor, and then the extra 8 teams that you bring and the extra content you get is not going to pay the costs. So if you do want more of a competitive scene, the money has to come from Valve and or the community, right? Because the organizers, we don't want to run our organizers bankrupt. We don't want to tell them, guys, you just have to run these tournaments. I mean, they're not going to do it, right? But it's also bad for the scene if organizers like ESL or Starladder or PGL or whatever end up being forced to run tournaments that don't make a profit. They're just going to run something else. Like,
that's what ESL is doing.
Dota, then?
They're running their own shit, right?
ESL are not running majors anymore. They're running their own Dota tournaments.
Didn't
but they
PGL
are not
stop doing tournaments too? They're doing other games now.
I think they're doing other games in addition, right? They did the PGL minor. I was there in January. So they've done at least one this year.
Compared to other years, how many tournaments did they do last year? Like 4 big tournaments?
Yeah, they might have done less this year. That's possible.
Like I think they're just getting out of Dota. Honestly, that's my.
But
guess.
I think what ESL are doing, right, is that they've made ESL Birmingham, for example. They keep running their flagship ESL tournaments with $250,000 or $500,000 prize pool, however much it is. Maybe it's actually 1 million even. But it's not part of the DPC system. The tournaments they've run this year have been 0 DPC tournaments, I think, this season.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't think there's been a single ESL one.
And now that it's not on Facebook.
and now that it's not on Facebook, they also, I feel like these things can be combined with some communication and some work from both sides, and it can make things better. Like, we can have these really good organizers that have a reputation of being able to run good tournaments, be interested in running Dota again, but there needs to be an incentive. It needs to, they make money. That's what companies do. It's the same with Valve. Valve also does stuff for making money. And this is where the challenge maybe comes in. Do Valve think it's profitable and worth it, even if it makes a short-term loss for them? Do they feel like the longevity of the game is increased by doing the things we're talking about, or is it not profitable anyway?
Mm-hmm.
And then they wouldn't need to do it, right? And that's something they need to decide. But it's very clear what the community wants. Like, the amount of people that are taking a stand and talking about this year compared to previous years is much bigger. There's much more attention to sustainability, tier 2 teams, livelihood of players. So I think I'm very cautiously optimistic that in the next season and going forward, we will be working on this becoming more sustainable for not the absolute.
That's the other thing is it's a constant tweak as well. Nothing's going to be perfect. There's always going to be something wrong. And I know it's probably annoying from Valve's perspective. Every year we're complaining about something new, but we care about the health of the game long term. So
I think that's the nature of every time you have a complex system or something big with a lot of people involved. There's always going to be stuff that needs improvement and can be better. Unless
you're the NBA, which is perfect on all levels. My God, what great drama! All right, moving on. Dota Underlords came out with a Proto-pass. Have you seen this yet?
Yes, I have played a little bit.
Oh, really?
I am now Grifter 3.
Nice, bro. Yeah. I got to Big Boss 4, and then I plummeted to Big Boss 1 again, and I got very sad.
How
back
fast
to 2
do you
now,
drop? Though. Like, how many games do you need to lose to drop a rank?
So I was very close to Big Boss 5, probably 1 win away based on my intuition. And I got 2 bottom 2s in a row, and I dropped to Big Boss 2. Then I got another.
Wow, so you drop 1 per loss. You drop 1 rank.
There was one time, I don't know if it was a bug, I dropped 2 ranks in 1 game from getting 8th place. Because the thing, for some reason, the MMR system right now, in most of my games, whether I'm Big Boss 4 or not, I am almost always like number 1 or number 2 in terms of rank. And it's always like super low rank people under me. So I don't know if it's because all these people that are like made it to Lord, they're just playing with each other in private lobbies, which I do see that a lot. So that has something to do with it, I'm sure.
Could be.
So I'm not running into higher ranks, which is a huge detriment. So if I screw up one game, I get destroyed. I mean,
that was basically one of the problems in that was why in Dota Auto Chess, in Dota, in the custom game with the ranking system there, that it was kind of impossible to reach beyond, let's say, what was it? You couldn't get Queen from just queuing. You had to do in-house because the games you were matched with, the players were so low ranked that if you didn't get top 2 every single game, you would lose rank from getting 3rd.
I don't even think you could get Rook in that game without private lobbies.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, true. Rook's what it was. Yeah.
So the Proto-pass is essentially like it's a prototype battle pass, if you will. Everybody gets it for free. You get things like, they came out with daily challenges, which I've been easily finishing actually for the most part. Things like deal X amount of damage for the day or kill this many units, blah, blah, blah. You can unlock a lot of cool rewards, such as win streak effects, respawn effects, new banners. So they're finally bringing in kind of cosmetics. There's a new terrain. It's not out yet, but you get it pretty early, only at level 5, which I've already achieved. It's like a very bright version of the map, if you will, and I'm very excited for that to come out. You get new yos, which is probably the best thing. You get, instead of yo, it'll be ow or oi, 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 oi. So excited for that.
It's so weird. Like, doesn't that say something about video games in general? That stupid little thing that you can press a message and it says yo gets used so much and is actually fun to do.
Yes,
I find myself clicking that, and then when I think about it, I'm like, why the fuck am I enjoying this so much?
Because we're all immature. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, it's really good. But yeah, so they came out with a bunch of cosmetics that you can unlock via the battle pass, and of course, future ones. Excuse me. Future ones will probably cost money and whatnot, but
Yeah.
For a prototype, I am very pleased. Would you agree?
I agree, and I think something to keep in mind about this, right, is everything we see about Underlords, like in isolation with the game, they're making really good things happen. Like they're making good decisions. They're being very active with balancing. They're being very active with making content. They're being, adding these new things and testing it and whatnot. From a company perspective, I think there's something like bigger than the game itself that is happening at Valve after Artifact, right? And you have to, if you look at this with what's happening with Underlords and it goes well, this is going to impact Valve's future titles too.
Yep.
Because they're a very data-driven company. So they're going to be like, okay, Artifact is what failed completely, and this is why. Underlords was really successful, and this is why. And the moment they can like draw the data and they can see, okay, this many people are doing this much and buying this much stuff, and the reception of the community is this good compared to this, it's like, it's kind of weird to say it, but it's like they've learned their lesson, And we're like talking about this like the community people, because we know way less about programming and systems and all of the structure that they put into the games than they do, but it's very clear to everyone that game was a mess, and what was the problem is pretty obvious by now, right? So it's great. It's just great to see that they have learned from that mistake on their new title. Then the downside to this is the Dota community right now is up in arms because, no, don't forget about us. You're spending all the time on Artifact or on Underlords, but it's like different teams and different people working on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember that. Maybe they're spending a bit more energy on Underlords. I wouldn't blame them if they are. It's a new title that needs love, and they don't want another failure story. So perhaps they're drawing in extra manpower for it. But yeah, that's basically it. I'm really excited to see how positive outcomes from this is going to affect future stuff that they release, and also what they put into Dota, right? Because it could spill over. If they do some stuff in Underlords that works out really well, this could also implement what we see in Dota in the future. So,
I mean, some of the Underlords themselves, which have yet to be released, could become heroes potentially,
for example.
But I still want
maybe some of the systems, like in some of the systems that are in the Battle Pass or whatever, obviously clearly inspired by Dota, but it could become like symbiotic where they influence each other.
For sure.
Perhaps.
All right, moving on to our fun section. So this question was from Base Pinda. I always
one of
wondered,
my mods and longtime subscribers in my Twitch stream.
There you go. I always wondered how pro players / talent wanted to be approached by fans, what fans can do and what they can't. This is a great question.
Why didn't you just fucking ask me in my stream for all these months?
So if I can go first and then you can follow up perhaps.
Sure.
So the main thing that I've noticed, and obviously I guess I should give my perspective on it because I don't consider myself I'm sure, God, what's the best way to put this? The first few times I went to TI and I was recognized, I probably came off as being like a rude person because, and it wasn't, but I wasn't trying to be rude. It's more, I felt uncomfortable that people recognize me. Very uncomfortable feeling. And I'm also introverted by nature, right? So both of those things I've gotten used to a little bit better. I've been able to talk to people a little bit better now. So what I've noticed with fans coming up, the only negative experiences I've had is when in some cases, and it's usually for somebody else, like a Slacks, for example, and not me, but sometimes it is with me, where the person feels that they know us very personally, so they can make fun of us in person, and it usually does not go over very well. And of course, Slacks and myself will put on a good face, but in the reality of the situation, you don't know us. You shouldn't be insulting us as if we're okay with it. Like me insulting you is completely different than some fan coming up to you insulting you. That's, I think, the biggest disconnect that I've noticed for people coming up to us at events. So that's what I would say is the main one for me. Yeah. And you?
Yeah, so generally what I've noticed, actually fan interactions that I really enjoy is, because there's like two ends of the spectrum, right? There's the people that are completely starstruck and just very nervous, shaking, and just, happy to meet you, which it's all good, right? Like it's understandable if people are nervous and they still find the courage to go because it's something big for them. And I really appreciate that people still do it even if they're worried, because
Yeah, those are
it,
the coolest
it's
moments, honestly.
it's
Yeah.
it's really that's totally cool. Something I also like though is people that just come over and are just themselves and just have a conversation. Like, hey, it's like you're identifying that obviously in the situation, like in the arena or whatever, we are personalities or stars or whatever you want to say, but we're still people too, and people just not being too crazy or being too careful with what they can or can't say, or being very very worried and just be keeping it extremely minimal. I personally don't have a problem with someone coming over and being like, hey man, I love your work, and just talking about something with Dota, like what do you think about that last game, how was that, this kind of stuff. Whereas other
Yeah.
people are very very careful or very worried, and they just come over and they kind of just shakingly hand you a notebook and just hope that you give them a signature, and then they just say thank you and walk away.
Hmm.
Which, like I said, also no problem with that. What I would say is a don't do is, first of all, what you said with, we have a persona or a character or whatever, but it's still different when you're there in real life. Like, real life is not Twitch chat. So if you write something in Twitch chat and you're like, oh, when I meet this person in real life, I can just say the same thing because he laughed at it when it was in Twitch chat. The things are different when you're there in person, because then it's not so much about your persona, but it's about you as a person too. It's like you
Hmm.
can't disconnect the two entirely like you can online in the same way. Um, that's one thing. The other thing is, I think some people, similar to what you said about just being able to joke with you, there's also people that they, because they feel like you're their friend or whatever. Some people, I don't think I personally really experienced this, but it's like I've heard stories of people like being touchy. Is that the right word for it?
Yeah, I don't
No,
think I've experienced that.
if you say you're touchy, then you're like careful about a subject, right? That's not what I meant. I meant people
To
that literally come over and touch.
Right. So they're is it
Um,
feely? No, maybe
yeah,
touchy's.
I'm not
I
sure
know.
what
I
it
know what
is,
you mean.
but
Whatever the
you
what
get the
the term
idea.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, again, and
Handsy.
it's the same.
Handsy.
Handsy, exactly. It's the same disconnect, right? Between like, how well do you know someone? Can you just go over and, it's fine to ask for a hug, but if someone just comes over straight up and gives you a hug, I think
Hmm.
I've heard of someone getting slapped on the butt or something. A talent that happens. Just
That's probably
like
happened to me.
really,
Yeah.
dude. Like that's it's pretty messed up. Like when you think about it, you wouldn't do this to a complete stranger, right? So think about this. They don't know you, and you don't
Right.
know them. It's like if you walk up to a stranger in the supermarket and you just slap them on the butt, and then you just say, "Hey, nice shirt." Like, what the fuck, man? Like,
Nice
there's no
shirt.
way. You, like, it's just no. Like, you just don't. And I think that's the thing, is that you need to remember the personal element. That's like the number one thing. Remember that it's still a person that's there. So if there's something you wouldn't generally do with a random stranger or a person that you just met, there's a good chance that it's in the bad category that you also still don't do.
All right. That's
Yeah,
interesting. So
that's
piggybacking off of this, I wasn't going to even bring this up actually because I just thought of it now. But have we done this before? Is there an experience that stands out to you in terms of like a positive experience with fans specifically? Because one specifically comes up with me,
like a
and
specifically positive experience.
yeah.
Okay, you go first.
So I think this was TI3, I want to say, and we had an autograph booth at TI. Where people come by and scan their badges wherever they get the digital autograph. It was really cool. I think it was TI3, maybe it was 4. I don't know.
Could be, yeah. Yeah.
And a girl comes up to me. I can't remember the context anymore at all, but suffice to say, I ended up signing her boobs, syndereN. And I was standing next to
Excellent.
Nikki, and I gave her a look. Like, is this okay? She's like, she's the one that took the picture. It's like, absolutely, take it. So that is that was pretty funny. How about you, buddy?
I don't remember if that happened to me. I just don't have the
I've
same,
also signed cleavage of a man, but that wasn't
I don't have the
quite
same
as
charisma
enjoyable.
as you, so I guess I don't really attract those people.
Yes, charisma. That's
No,
what it takes.
I signed keyboards and shit. So I don't know. I don't have like one in particular. There's been some cool moments where people have come up and said, like, thank you, I really love the work you do, and then they have like a little gift that's always really nice, that they're like thoughtful and bring you something like a memory. I still have this. I think it was an Australian that went all the way to TI, and then she gave me a little koala plushie that I still have. That kind of thing is really cool, because like, again, it's like personal. You want to do something for someone that brought you a lot of entertainment, enjoyment in
Yeah.
your life. That's really cool. There's been this. there's this. I think there's been this girl that I think it's been 3 or 4 times at TI. I think it's been TI. Maybe it's been other events, but I've seen 3 or 4 times, and she's always equally starstruck. It's really funny. It's like you've met me 2 or 3 times before. She's always like, "Oh my god!" That's also kind of funny. Yeah. And then finally, like I said, I not like specific instance, but just people that just come over and just are themselves, are natural, and just having a conversation, just just being cool about it is honestly a nice experience for me. I really, that you can just tell that they're having a good time, they're enjoying the games, and they want someone to talk to it about because they're passionate. And then it's obviously a little different than if they just talk to someone else in the crowd that they just sit down next to, and they're like, wow, that was a cool game, right? But that they're just they're just cool about it and they're enjoying themselves. That's super nice. It's
that
what you want to see, right?
Just
People
based on you
fun.
talking about this stuff, it reminds me of a couple other short experiences that I've had that were super positive. One was, I think it's when I owned the team and we were in Manila for the Manila Major, and I ran into this girl who was crazy about the Phoenix Suns. A Filipino, I believe she was Filipino, crazy about the Phoenix. And we just started talking about Phoenix Suns stuff. It was not Nikki. She can't stand NBA stuff. It's really annoying, actually. But I can't tell you how amazing. First of all, just to find anybody to talk about the Suns with is very difficult for me, syndereN. To find that in the fucking Philippines in the middle of a Dota 2 tournament is like mind-boggling. It was so cool. And then the third experience that came to mind, also Suns related, of course. A guy came up to me at one of the TIs and handed me a picture that he made, an illustration or whatever, and it's Centaur with a Suns jersey on. It's my favorite player, which he didn't even know apparently, Kevin Johnson, number 7, bouncing a basketball. If you go to my Twitter, you can see it as the background. It's like the coolest thing anybody's ever made for me. So those are some things that really enjoyed.
Maruna just reminded me of one more in chat.
Mm-hmm.
She said, talk about the Philippines. So when we went to the Manila Major, one of the customs officers in Manila recognized me. That was also a kind of funny experience. But that's, it's not really the same thing with it's not regular fan interaction, but it was just a fun thing that that's not something I would expect in any other country. But it's just because Dota is so huge in the Philippines that the people that work customs there, he recognized me. And then they had these, but I think they did this for everyone. They had these necklaces. Did you get that too when you arrived in the airport? I was given 2 different types of necklace. Remember. Like some classic, some traditional bead necklaces, I think. I feel like they were
Hawaii
given to...
thing.
Well, yeah, it kind of looks like it too. I still have them lying around. I think that's...
I don't remember that. Did you have to show your boobs for that?
No, I did not.
That's a thing in Louisiana.
So it's not the Hawaiian one.
Okay. Well, no, the Hawaiian one's not that. Hawaiian one, you get out of the plane right away. They put the lua, I want to say. It's like flowers or something.
Oh, yeah, this is a flower one. Right.
And then if you're in New Orleans, you show your boobs, you get beads around your neck. So if you see a woman with 50 beads around her neck, if you're watching on video, here's the exact thing that was made for me, syndereN.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I saw that one.
It's so cool.
That's really
so cool. I was
awesome.
so happy. It's very awesome.
That's awesome.
Anywho. All right, so...
Okay. That was a lot
moving
of
on.
stories. That was fun, though.
Yeah, that was great. Last thing before we head out here. Top 5, and this everybody's looking forward to this. Top 5 most annoying heroes in the game. We're gonna rank them. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I want to say this now, syndereN. Techies is not allowed to be on here because he's both of our number 1s, and it makes it less interesting.
What do you mean? I had him on the list as number 1.
Pick a 5th. I know. Me too.
Okay, so I need to think of one more. Okay, give me a sec then.
Because I look at Techies as subhuman. He's not even a hero. He's not really a hero if you think about it. Designed just to annoy people. It's the mental warfare like Slack's likes, right? So I don't think it's fair to put him on there because it's everybody's number 1.
Okay, I think I have found my next one.
All right, go 5 through 1.
This goes on my list. Yeah.
You do so how do you want to do this? You want to do 5 back and forth, or just do your list and my list?
We can do that. We take turns.
Okay, number 5 then.
I want to preface it though because there is a condition for this for me when it comes to most annoying heroes to play against. Because Dota is a very, it's a game where everything has counters. So for my list to make sense and what I really think, it's under the condition that the hero is good in the game, right?
Yes.
Because you can have a hero that's
Yes.
super annoying and then it's just mega countered and then it's like, I don't fucking care that they picked that hero.
Right.
Or it can be like, oh my god, they just picked that hero.
So I'm going to piggyback
for me, the
off
list
of
is
that.
that they're good.
It's not just that they're good. For me, it's more of a collection of heroes that I've been annoyed with, the most annoyed with in the history of my playing, which is over a decade at this point.
Okay, for me, it's the current patch.
Okay, so for me, it's definitely not current patch, potentially.
But some of them have a history, too.
They have a very long history.
For a long time.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Number 5.
Okay, number 5 is Io for me.
Okay, tell me why. Give me some rant about this hero. Please.
So it just barely fell off the list if Techies was on it, and that's because Io has been nerfed. But in games, in pubs, there are some players that spam this hero and play it countless times. And what makes Io extremely annoying to play against is obviously the whole dynamic of relocate in public games, where people are not particularly good at playing as a team and playing the map correctly. And they're also not particularly good at focus firing their targets. So Io does both things, right? It keeps the guy alive. Your team tries to kill the guy Io is tethering you. You're screaming at the top of your lungs, kill the fucking Io. And people still hit the guy that it's tethered to. And then while you're like, okay, that fucked up. And now you go back to a farming phase. Then your carry solo farming across the map and gets relocate ganked. That's just really fucking annoying. So it makes the list because Techies fell off.
Fair enough. Yep. So I'm seeing some chat suggestions already on what we should be annoyed with. I'm going to say like things like Sniper and Troll are not on my list because I feel like that patch was, in the grand scheme of things, very brief.
True.
They were very annoying, but for a very short amount of time. My number 5, and this is more prevalent towards the beginnings of my Dota career, if you want to call it a career, is Venomancer. Very fucking annoying hero. His Gale wasn't dispellable until somewhat recent. I feel like it's been a year, maybe? I can't remember. It's
maybe a bit more. But
in the grand scheme of things, very recent. Like this hero is... Everything slows on this hero. How annoying is that? Damage over time, constantly. Like, he's got to be top 5, syndereN. Go ahead.
Veno is really annoying, for sure. I could see that. What was the hero you mentioned right before that you said? Oh, and never mind. You didn't mention it. I just came to think about it, but it's not on my list, so never mind. Okay, number 4, again, current patch. I've got Morphling.
I like how our criterias are totally different, by the way.
Yeah.
Current patch, all-time list. All right.
I'll give some honorable mention for all time after this then.
Fair enough.
So Morphling, if it has really good morph targets in the enemy team, if you have bad heroes for killing it, you don't have instant stuns, you don't have silences, you don't have heroes that want to buy Vessel, and on top of it, if he can turn into your fucking Earthshaker and one-shot your backline, this hero is really, really annoying to play against. And again, same logic as the IO. When it comes to public games, if people are not good enough at focus firing and selecting the correct targets, Morphling is one of those heroes where you deal 4,000 damage to him, don't kill him, and lose the team fight 4-0. So, yeah, he's very annoying.
Okay. That sounds fair. Number 4 for me.
Base Pinda just showed up for the end of the podcast. He missed his own question for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, sorry, Base Pinda. You're going to have to watch the rebroadcast of this. All right. Number 4 for me, and again, this is definitely not current patch. Keeper of the Light. Holy fucking shit. Mana Leak, Blinding Light combo. Kill me. That is the most annoying spell. If you had to pick one spell of all time, is the most annoying.
So you mean the old Mana Leak, right?
Yes,
not
the old Mana. The current one's not nearly as bad, obviously. So Coddle, especially when he was picked all the time and Ags was rushed, like, good God, dude, that hero, kill me.
He was annoying. He had phases for sure. I would not even put him top 10 now, but over the grand scheme, I can definitely see it being annoying. Okay. All right, now we get to the really annoying shit. This is where my list is very clear for me. All right, number 3 is Tinker.
Oh, same with me, buddy. Nice. We align.
Yeah, Tinker. Tinker in pub games, if it's a good Tinker game and the guy knows how to play and you just can't fucking end the game and he gets 6 slotted, it's really annoying. And fortunately, it's relatively rare nowadays that, first of all, people play a lot of Tinker and that he is a very good pick in the game. Currently, Tinker is not that great of a hero in Dota, with the tempo of the game being as fast as it is. But when it is good, holy fuck is it annoying to play against. It's definitely top 3.
I mean, just think of the days when he was popular.
Also top 3.
Yeah. I would. That's why he's on my list. He just never ends. The game never ends. The best base defender in the game, probably just marching the machines constantly. When you get Ags, you have ridiculous range on, or the laser just bounces everywhere. Yeah, that hero is the worst. And if you don't have like you
right.
said, the lineup to catch him, that's when it gets excruciatingly bad.
Or a lineup
number
that
3.
can push his base before he's too strong.
Right.
That's
or number
the other
2
option, like buying pipes. Okay. Number 2 for me is, in a similar vein, Arc Warden. It's similar logic again. If it's a good Arc Warden game, you have bad heroes for killing him or for pressuring his base fast enough, and this guy gets 6 slotted. He's constantly split pushing you. He's super obnoxious to deal with. He solo kills your supports in the backline with his clone. And pushing the base is a nightmare because of the 2 bubbles in base. So he's like a worse version of Tinker for me to play against because he's more often than Tinker, the games get really hard to win. Like, even when it's a good Tinker game, sometimes he fucks up. You catch him on a Tinker ward, you kill him once, he uses buyback. You all-in dive him and base kill him. Even if you lose your team, your heroes buyback, and then you can go end the game. With Arc Warden, that is so much harder. He can play super safe, and his clone can deal the damage without even sending his hero there. So that hero, when it's good, is...
So the reason he's not on my list is because this is an all-time list. And I feel like he's only been annoying for a couple years now. Like, even when he first came out, I don't think he was annoying at all. He was just garbage, right? When he first came out.
I don't remember.
It's been a while. But anyway, number 2 for me, and you might be surprised it's number 2 and not number 1 after last week, is the fucking Lion! I hate this hero. The reason he's not number 1.
You have Lion over Tinker. Think about that for a second.
You shut your mouth and let me talk.
All-time
right?
most annoying hero, yes. Lion over Tinker.
I'm telling you.
Oh my fucking God.
When I rage in game, I'm talking about the beginning of time. Dota 1. Lion in mid, that's where it started. And I will agree with you. I have a mental block. I have a mental issue with this hero. It's created something in my mind where I despise him. And I will agree, it's only in the laning stage. It's the first 15 minutes of the game. This fucking Impale that doesn't miss. This goddamn mana drain that now slows for God knows what reason. This instant hex. This ridiculous burst damage. This hero is so annoying in the laning stage, especially in a 1v1, which, again, Dota 1 days, that was 1v1. You put Lich mid, you put Lion mid. Those are the heroes that are fucking mid. Shadow Demon was a mid hero. I hate Lion.
This is definitely the one, I guarantee, no matter what your number 1 is, this is the one we would disagree on the most.
I know.
I can't imagine us disagreeing more. He's not even in my top 25.
I understand. I'm allowed to have personal hatred for something, all right?
Of course.
Personal bias.
It's your list. You're allowed to have your wrong opinions.
Okay,
plenty of people have those.
Give your number 1, dude.
Okay, so since Techies is out,
yes,
number 1 is Broodmother.
Ooh, okay.
When it is the perfect Brood game and it's a good Brood player, this hero takes over the entire map in 15 minutes and you just get starved and you can't fucking play. And you just know you're going to lose. You know what's going to happen. It's just a question about how long is it going to take and how many of your teammates need to go to the wrong area of the map and get killed before that happens. This is the primary reason I prefaced it the way I did, because this hero is not inherently broken. When it's a bad Brood game, the hero sucks. But when it's the last pick of the draft and the enemy has nothing against it, there's a 90% chance you lost the game in draft. And then when you have to sit through and play the game and play for that 10% and you just see it shrinking to 5, to 4, to 3%, every ongoing minute, you know you're losing. It's it's mental warfare. So, yeah.
Okay, that's
and
fair.
Historically, Brood would probably be my number 1 as well, over Techies, actually.
Ooh, just because
that might be my number 1 of all time. No, because historically, Brood has always been like that. It's always been the fucking cancer hero of Dota when you think about it.
Techies didn't used to be good back in the day as well, right?
It's been good and bad, but Brood has always been this last pick menace, right? In every patch, in pubs at least. So, yeah, that hero is
all right.
Absolute cancer.
My number 1 most annoying hero of all time, and I had to think about this because I really wanted Lion number 1. I really hate Lion, like I said. And this hero, again, isn't really picked that often anymore. There was a time in Dota for, I want to say, 1.5 years to 2 years, and Nikki knows this based on, like, I know I get angry sometimes. I don't get angry at people necessarily, but I will rage at myself, just, Gah! And the ones that make me rage the most, like I become a terrible person almost, is when there was a meta where you just could not finish the fucking game. So high ground defenders were the creme de la creme. The most annoying hero and the hero that tilts me harder than anything is Quas Wex Invoker. Holy shit. Fucking Tornado EMP, doesn't matter what stage of the game it is. Kill him once, it's okay. And back then you could buy back even more often. Oh my God, you can never finish the game, and you just lose because you end up making a mistake because he just sits in his fucking base. It's the
late
worst.
game Invoker is really annoying to play against if it's a good player.
Yeah.
The thing is, again, from my perspective with the games that I play, there are plenty of mistakes made, but they're probably not as crucial, and the games probably don't drag out as long as your games do on average. So generally, invokers in our games don't usually get to that like super late game stage, because what usually happens with invokers is that they either win the game when they hit their mid game like power timing when they have all their spells that are strong, or they lose the game before they get level 25. So there aren't that many of those like super late game invoker instances, but when they do happen, it is extremely annoying.
I mean, even I want to go back to a patch a year and a half to 2 years ago. I was looking at my game length. I'm not even exaggerating. For about a 2-month period in this invoker time frame, if you want to call it that, my games were legitimately 55 minutes to an hour average. Like miserable games, like hour and a half games semi-consistently. It's like, and I'm not saying I couldn't do anything about it because I'm just not good enough. Invoker, if you're a good player, you're just going to destroy everybody. Like it's so frustrating. Yeah. So that is my list.
Okay, I want to do my honorable mention. There's one hero that I didn't put on the list because it's not that annoying right now, but of my all-time, it's probably top 5 as well, and that's Naga Siren, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Would probably make my top 5 as well. Similar, again, you can see the pattern in my logic, right, of how I'm thinking it. Yeah. You get to these later stage situations, it's constantly split pushing. You try to take a fight, it uses fucking Song of the Siren, they reset, they defend again, they keep delaying the game, and then when Naga gets 6-slotted and you don't have heroes that can kill the illusions, you just know you're gonna fucking lose. The reason this isn't on right now is that I don't think it's a top 5 annoying hero right now, but of all time in Dota, Naga has been so annoying across many years, and it's been like a TI staple too, right? It was picked a lot at TI2, it was picked at TI3, I think it was played also at TI4, especially until people figured out that TI4 you could just fucking push the game in 15 minutes. People were still playing Naga Siren.
Yeah. I mean, TI2, TI2, TI3, it was booed every time a song went off, right? Yeah. Benoroya, so there's a reason
that was something, though. Naga has made some great moments in Dota, don't get me wrong. Like, there's a lot of really hype moments, like the very iconic TI2 play, right? With the Song of the Siren from Na'Vi, or IG against Na'Vi. But the concept of the hero and what it does is just, in a lot of games, really, really, really annoying to deal with. So
I agree. All right.
That's honorable mention. I don't know if there's anything else that's an honorable mention. Do you have one?
No.
That didn't make the list, but that's still fucking annoying?
Not really. It was pretty strong on those 6, if you include techies.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us live and listening to the audio and YouTubes and everything in between. syndereN, have you watched In Bruges?
I have not. Not yet.
All right. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Until next time, SunsFan and syndereN signing out. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.